Hello, guys, and welcome to Find Inc. 2021 Spring Conference Ingat. I'm Nissan Tam, and I'm one of your conference directors. And first of all, I want to say thank you guys so much for making it to this event. It's for those who know, it's been more than a year in the making, and I'm very excited for everyone to be able to see the amazing group of panelists we have today. So to start us off, our conference executive director, Isabel Joy Carrillo, wasn't able to be here today. So she pre-recorded a video beforehand for our welcoming remarks. So I will show that now.
Hey y'all, I'm Isabel and I am your executive director for this 2021 spring conference. This video is pre-recorded from the night before, and as much as I wish I could be in attendance with y'all, learning, vibing, and just being in community with y'all, unfortunately I did have a family event come up, so I'm really sorry, but even though I can't be there with y'all, I just wanted to take the time to record this video and welcome you to D1 Fine's conference for spring 2021. The theme for this conference is, as y'all know from the pubbing and excitement that led up to this event, is Ingat. And it's a special word for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people in this Zoom call as well. Ingat is the Tagalog word for take care. When I hear Ingat, I hear my mama, papa, tito, whoever just wishing me to take care because they love and care for me. But aside from that, Ingat to me is also a transitional word. It meant them sending me off out of their care and off to take care of myself. It was them sending me off with an ingat as I went off to play in the yard, in the playground, or do whatever it is that kids do to explore and entertain themselves in this world. But when I got a little older, it was I'll try, ingatan mo yung pinsan mo, meaning take care of your cousin, as they dropped us off in the downtown mall, center, wherever it is that kids do want to go. But ingat to me meant I trust you. I trust you know what's right for yourself, what's right for your cousin, what's right for your community, and maybe even the world. It literally is that powerful to me. It was a transition of you're old enough now to take care for yourself. And maybe it's the tenderness and care that's always been behind that word. In my household and in my experience, but to me, that meant love. And the pressures of work and school and extracurriculars, jobs, whatever it is, Ingat was grounding. It was a reminder of all the love and care that I experienced in my childhood, and it was a reminder to be good to myself. It's a reminder of the village that it took to get me here today, and the genuine love and support that culminates into the woman that I am today. And it truly does take a village, or even more, honestly. Growing up, my family was my entire village. I was surrounded by love. It was almost suffocating. It wasn't until college that I felt like I lost my community. Uprooting yourself and struggling to thrive when everything's so new is immensely hard when you were born into a community that was already dead set on loving you unconditionally from day one. I've spent 5 years here in Boston, and I do like to think I've found communities that felt like home. And Find, D1, Barcata, and the Filipino community as a whole feels like the family I grew up with. Well, I mean, I'm still growing up now, so I guess there's a lot of parallels there. It seems as I learn to continue and grow, the communities I align myself with and find myself in shift and change. So, as adaptable as we all are, so is the term of ingat. Taking care means so many different things, but we will be exploring ingat through three themes: social justice, community building, and mental health. When I think of these three terms and how they relate, I think of concentric circles and how ingat applies in each way. Taking care of yourself through a scope of mental health, your immediate community through community building, and social justice for the world at large is how I metabolize Ingat and our themes for today. We haven't had a conference since 2017, so this event is just exceptionally special, and it just felt exceptionally special through every part of the planning. I know we aren't meeting under ideal circumstances, but I am sure of how needed a bunch of these conversations and connections are, especially in times where identity work and community building are so important in regards to the hate crimes, this global pandemic, and just feeling isolated and burnt out on the whirlwind that this past year has been. No way that my past self knew, or any of us knew, what the future held 1 year ago. But I know that these three values in my community are what helped me get through it all. So, without further ado, here's a start to Conference 2021. I am so sorry that I can't be there in person, but I just wanted to think of all of y'all in attendance, and I wanted to thank all of our speakers, everyone who has taken an active role in this planning, execution, and just participating in general. I want to thank you, like, literally from the bottom of my heart. I hope y'all have a good day, enjoy, and I can't express to y'all how much I wish I was there. Um, Sorry, I literally cannot resist, and I feel like it's just not fitting to say anything else for this sign off. But ingat, y'all. Hope to see you soon, and can't wait for what this day brings you. Bye.
Okay. Thank you to Isabel for putting together that video, even though she couldn't make it here today. And so now,
Hey, y'all.
and so now we have our keynote speaker, Tony De La Rosa. A bit about him. He is an aspiring anti-bias and anti-racist educator, motivational speaker, DEI consultant, poet, and overall cultural broker. In 2013, he co-founded Pulse Poetry, a school elective course and after-school program which uses spoken word pedagogy and public speaking to empower youth voice in Indianapolis, Boston, Miami, and across the globe. He has a master's in teaching at Marian University and a master's in education with a focus on arts nonprofit management from Harvard University. He served as a board director of the Filipino Young Leaders Program, PhilPro, a 501c3 sponsored by the Ayala Foundation and Philippine Embassy to strengthen U.S. to Philippine relations in the field of education. So without further ado, here's Tony.
Hey y'all, good to be here. I'm really excited to be in community in coalition with other FIND regions. I'm noticing it's mostly the FIND leads, which is really awesome because you all are in charge of a lot of people. You're in charge of communities, which is super exciting at the collegiate level. I wanted to share my own presentation as a teacher. I'm gonna put my teacher hat on and my educator hat on. And I actually use more aspiring abolitionist educator because I do believe that abolition is the way right now. I know anti-bias, anti-racist is a way and method, but abolitionist theory is a lot more where I want us to go. So I'm going to share screen so you can see my presentation. It's really short. But I'll start us off first with just like who I am, really quick. Centerpiece is myself protesting Davos, but this is the program that I was with my kiddos. I think I just want to share some parts of that life with you all. It started off as Indie Pulse, and I did it through Teach for America. I work for the organization now as a leadership coach. And we place teachers in underserved, the lowest performing schools in America to really help close that academic or opportunity achievement gap for our kids, right? And most of them do identify as our most marginalized communities and kids. So that's what I found, like youth spoken word, something that I did in college. Do you have any spoken word poets in here or poets in general? You can put it in the chat. If you write, don't be shy. Put that in there because I would love to connect. I'm trying to uplift other poets and writers in here and speakers because we need more of you. Oh, I see one of them already. I don't write, but I'm a fan of poetry. Oh, well, you know what? Everyone can write. Everyone can do poetry. It's not just like I have to be a poet. So I want you all to just embrace that. Like I never thought I was gonna be a poet outside of like writing, but I took some courses and I did some open mics, and then it just changed my life. So that's that side of me. This is my wife, Stephanie Jimenez. She's Cuban American. She's a lawyer here in Miami-Dade. We're expecting and we're really excited. My identity is very much changing into a father. And I never thought that we're so close. It's literally June 3rd, y'all. And I am like, we have, this is the baby room behind. You can see like little Star Wars pictures back here. We're both nerds. The carpet, Star Wars theme. There's my cat on the floor. So a lot of my life is changing. I used to just be an activist on the ground all the time, leading organizations, just like expending myself. And I think about Ingat now. I'm really thinking about internally, what does that mean for me? Sustaining the work that I do for this baby, Sebastian Rizal, after Jose Rizal, and my wife and my smaller community. And I love sriracha. I like cooking with sriracha, everything on sriracha, on my spam musubi, on my adobo, on my, I don't know, a caldereta. I'm from Pampanga. My family's from Pampanga and Manila. So you'll see a lot of that come out of here. And then last is I added this slide here. This was Amanda Gorman before she blew up, y'all. She blew up like literally in a few months after the thing, and we were close friends at Harvard, but now we're still friends. It's just hard to get a hold of her, but we were on a speech together. I wanted to show that little nugget there. If you know any of other speakers there, that's Alex Iono. He was in a recent Netflix film. We were just literally talking 2 months ago, and then boom, the platform breaks, right? The internet breaks, which is really cool. So this is a little bit about me. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one as well. I'm checking the chat periodically because sometimes like I get distracted. Oh, Ralph Pampanga, great. William, Sriracha for life, I love it. And 305. Emily, we have to meet at some point, at one point. I know you're down here. All right, and before that, you probably did this. I don't know if you did, but I do it for my presentations always. So I do honor my land that I'm on all the time in my the grounding of decolonialization and re-indigenization. So the land here, at least in Miami, is Taino, Tequesta, and Seminole land here. And I just want to make sure that we are honoring them. And if you want to learn how to honor what a land acknowledgement is and who came before your land, I think native/ca.com is a website you can actually find that if you don't know. I think in Massachusetts, if you're coming in D1, I know my D1 people are Wampanoag land, right? And other folks as well. But I really highly suggest that if you don't do that for your meetings and how you can support those people as well that are currently there, because we are on stolen land. And then the moment right now, as we know, is just, I don't want to reiterate, it's a tragedy, yo. It's a travesty. It's a tragedy. We are grieving. It is. You can hear my voice. It's just every time I talk about it, it's just like a. That's why I love that this conference is called Ingat, because I needed it as much as you all need that and your communities need it. Because yo, this last week alone, you know, the atrocities that happened to like POCs. I don't use Black, Indigenous, people of color anymore just because it's confusing. BIPOC, I don't use that anymore because I think it does like create a different hierarchy between different races. And I don't think that's productive and effective in communicating and presenting. Well, Black people are also people of color. Indigenous people are also people of color. So I try to stay away from that. But people of color, which was created back in, I believe back actually between Asian American Pacific Islanders, the Black community, the Latinx community, Indigenous communities, created the term people of color to create the solidarity around that, recognize that. So the moment is tragic. I don't have to reiterate the thousands of Asian Americans who have been attacked, are being attacked, and the underreported right now. I don't have to reiterate Dante Wright and what happened to Ma'Khia Bryant recently. I don't have to reiterate what's being at stake for trans and non-binary LGBT folks right now in the country, when people are not taking care of them and not even thinking or including them in their activism. It's a lot. So Ingat is something I needed today. I need ongoing as we think about sustaining our solidarity and activism. Cool. Let's do a quick breath together. I believe collective breaths to help us out because it helps operate the vagus nerve in your body, and the vagus nerve actually helps you really lean into over lines of difference, right, and really stretch that conflict. So if you don't mind, you can shut off your computer, you can shut off your screen for a few seconds. I'm just going to lead us in a collective breath before we begin. And let's go. I do heart, I do stomach, heart, and mind. So if you want to copy me, that's fine as well. So I'll start here and I'll close my eyes and I really just breathe in for 3 seconds and breathe it out for 3 seconds. Breathe out. And really that like exhale sound really helps operate that vagus nerve. If you're ever wondering like, oh my God, I'm feeling so much tension in my body when I'm triggered, those deep breaths and actually breathing out hard really activates that and really calms the body and the nerves. So that's our stomach and then our heart. Deep breaths in, out, and then our head, align all of them together and all our chakra together. Deep breath in, and deep breath out. Yo, I knew that because I drank too much coffee this morning and I've been running off of like no sleep. Because when you're doing this work, people come to you for more work all the time. And for my philams, I do it for you all because out of love. So this is the agenda today, y'all. I'm very, very, very like, I come down here, you know, and in teacher hat, there's gonna be some breakout rooms to talk and share with each other, but it's gonna be Ingat ka and wellness, Ingat ka community building, Ingat ka chapter 3, isang bagsak as verb in this idea. So let's start. And I'm reading from my notes as well because I try to have 2 laptops to prepare. All right, so Ingat ka and wellness, that's a picture of my tita, Rika. Actually, fine, I'm going doing some meta stuff and fine, there's a slide in here that I want us to pause recording because I did not get consent from my ninang to use a photo and I really wanted to just honor that. So if that's okay, not to use that and just pause recording during that time. This one's fine, but letting you know now. Cool. So this is Tita Rika. I think this is back in the 70s. That's Tito, Elwin, and a lot of my family came here from the Philippines through the military. So there's a lot of like white worship. There's a lot of military industrial complex worship in this and also honoring them too, because I hold a lot of respect and love for my military folks, my cousin, you know, who went to the US Air Force like Academy, you know, but also that tension of that being something that brought us here, right? And we always have to give back to. So I wanted to start off with that in this mini poem. Ingat ka, wellness and mental health for Philams. We put our sanity on a shelf. We put everyone else before self. Our wellness is well forgotten. Mental health nakalimutan, forgotten. So I offer this piece because it's how I was raised, and I venture to say that's how some of y'all have been raised too. And I grew up fortunate to have 2 healthy parents. I feel like it's rare these days because people, you know, it's tough right now to find people who are well and families that are together. But when I think about Ingat Kai, I also think about this idea of utang na laub, right? The blood debt, the debt that can never be paid, or this idea that we have to pay into gratitude forever. And that stresses me the F out. Like, I'm 31 years old and I'm still stressed out understanding that is a responsibility of mine, that my ancestors, I always have to pay them and pay it forward. So again, like, I know I'm next in line because I'm the most physically, financially, spiritually healthy person in my family, in my close nexus of people. And when will I carry the torch is what I keep thinking. And this will probably influence the type of career you have chosen, right? Like the types of relationships you have built in college, you've built outside of college,
and what steps you are doing next, right, to take that career step. So I'm imagining like, I can't do this artist job because I gotta pay for X, Y, and Z. I gotta do X, Y, and Z. I gotta take into corporate so I can help my family, right? That's what a lot of us think about. And I want us to really critically question what that means for us long term. And this all reminds me of Tita Rica, obviously, because she's been the nexus of our family for a long, long time. She was a manager at the military base in San Diego, California. If there's any SoCal or California people out here, shouts to you all. That's where I grew up in San Diego. And she managed some of the commissaries where military people would get their food, get their resources, all of that. And she led SoCal's Filipino network, right? Like Filipino, she's like a leader of that. Very much like you all potentially might be doing later on. But she like put herself out on the line and did not think of Ingat for herself. I knew that. And that's what Filipinos rarely do. Filipino AX Americans really do. I'll use Philam as the nomenclature for today. Philams do that a lot. We put ourselves out there and we don't really take care of ourselves. So I really want us to really critically question what that means for us. And what's been helping me is this idea of this quote that my mentor, her name is Suprita, they and she pronouns, their names is Suprita, and she is also Lao Vietnam American and leads our Teach for America senior managing AAPI Native Hawaiian alliances. And she keeps telling me like, a no to you means more yeses to me, right? What does that mean? Well, yeah, let's say no more, right? Because we usually say yes. Put a plus one in the chat if you're a yes person and you've said yes too many times before. Go ahead and do that. Put a plus one in the chat because I can't be alone in this joint. There's no way. Oh yeah. See, exactly. It is ingrained in us. And I wasn't a part of Find. I wasn't part of a Barcada, like I just knew that I had to hustle for my family. That's part of like a core value that Filipinos have in their Philams have in their bodies. So we hustle, and I'm proud of that. But it also like grinds us to the ground. And I want us to make sure that we're always holding those two worlds together. So what I want us to do in teacher fashion, we're gonna do some breakout pairs and really just talk about and dialogue really quick about what it means to, when's the last time, this is my last slide for this part. When was the last time you've held a boundary? Because I'm really practicing boundaries. When was a boundary crossed? And how does this feel? And then like, I guess another question, what does that make you want to do? So I want you to take, I guess, 6 minutes in a pair to discuss that. And I'm looking at Corey, I'm looking at the logistics people. Whenever we're ready to go, 6 minutes to talk about boundaries in general. What do you want to do to really strengthen your boundaries? And we'll reflect out there. I want to hear from you. Great, people are pumping right in. I got to jump in and hear a couple of people share about their families, their their work at school, obviously like holding multiple leadership positions, plus a job, plus 18 credits, plus all the stuff. You are seeing I did it all myself. So I just wanted to honor that and affirm that. Great. So the next chapter, I hope you had a chance to like really think about that in a pair. You're gonna have another chance to dialogue in a pair about that soon. The next chapter for this talk is Ingat, community keeping. And the two pictures ID here is Racial Melancholia, Racial Dissociation is a book that I'm reading right now from these two amazing authors and scholars and psychoanalysts. We talk about critical race theory, right? I'm a racial equity strategist, and we talk about critical race theory, but we don't often talk about it as it intersects the psyche. And I want to bring that into this work. And then Reclaiming Filipinx Identity is a close friend organization. If you follow them on Instagram, amazing. I learned a lot from them, and I've recently shared some of their work. But yes, when I think about the ka, I think about Philam core values kapwa, right? Meaning the union that refers to any kind of relationship, a union with everyone and everything. Adrienne Marie Brown, if you know that activist, calls it right relationship with the people and the earth. It's a space we share with other Filipinos, right? Kapwa, right? Puang, the space that's interconnected. And right now, this makes me think about this idea of this collective trauma through this loss of identity that we have. Every generation, there's get farther and farther and farther in my mind from the motherland in some way. So we're fighting so hard to get into these barcadas, right? To get into these cultures to really hold on to it. And part of this idea is called racial melancholia. The part of it in racial dissociation is this idea of mourning the loss of an identity, mourning the loss of something you can't even name that you're mourning. Why? What? That's crazy, right? And it affects people. And then while we feel as also Asian Americans within, Filipino Americans within the Asian American diaspora bubble or Asian diaspora bubble, we're like even invisibilized within that bubble too. So that's also a loss that we feel, right? So there's a lot of grievance and loss that is associated with being Philam. And that's why it's important to really think about Ingat, right? How do we take care of ourselves and take up space and make sure that we're seen and we're not, this sense of loss is filled, right? And this idea of Ingat and Kapwa also aligns with this idea of balangay, right? This, and I learned this from Reclaiming Filipinx Identity, this idea of balangay, which is a part of Kapwa, which is the idea of coexisting with close quarters on a small ocean vessel. I love that little analogy there. The means to maintain smooth interpersonal relationships to sail smoothly, since there's no option otherwise. And we know that kind of situation for us, right? We didn't choose our family and our kins, but we are in kinship with them. We love them dearly, right? And this part is where, fine, if you don't mind just pausing the recording, because I'm gonna share it. Yep. Y'all, I had a chance to hear from D4, D1, and it was good. It's different for everybody, and I love that. Like, you all had a chance to kind of just like think about that personal aspect of it. Some of it's for our mothers, some of it's from our younger sisters, some of it's for our siblings, and some of it's for just other organizations, other people in other orgs, right? And it doesn't have to be a family member. So I really appreciate you critically thinking about what that means for you, and how the rest of the stuff that you learn in this conference will be helping really move yourself in relation to another person and community, and then yourself in relation to the system at large. And the last chapter 3 is, when I think about Ingat ka, I think about social justice, and I think about this idea of isang bagsak as a verb. Is something that you see this graphic here is something that I co-founded with my my kuya, Ron Rapatalo, who is like a future version of myself. So one, I want you all to find that for yourselves. Who are those people that you see like, oh, that's me. That's a little bit like where I'm going, right? And I need to keep a cabinet of people who are my leaders, right? That I look up to. And then it doesn't have to be a Philam person, but I was fortunate that it was for this person who's in education, consulting, and into anti-racist work. This was a panel that I created based off of, I was inspired after going through Tatlong Baksak, which is a series combating anti-Blackness in the Philam community, created by Dr. Alison Tiango Cubales, if you know who she is, from San Francisco State University, professor of ethnic studies. We're kin. And we created this to make sure that this exists. I'll send this to Find, so you all can see this this panel after this. But yeah, I think about this poem that I wrote for it. Isang baksak as verb in Tagalog, translated as unity as verb, unity as action across lines of difference, across lines of passion, the word of equal parts, resilience and resistance, a word beginning with our ancestor and re-sister, Gabriela Silang, a freedom fighter who mobilized 2,000 men from different Filipino tribes of Ilocos to lead a unified clapback against a Spanish colonization in the 1700s. Isang bagsak as verb was the clapback against a dictatorship during the anti-martial law movement. Hashtag Isang Bagsak it was a clapback that echoed across the sea, invoked by Larry, Itliong, Philip Veracruz, Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, and a legacy of Mexican and Filipino farm workers in the 1960s who fought for a piece of a crop and broke bread, although language served as a wall instead. But you know, immigrant resilience be butterfly at a chrysalis with no bound, with one round of Isang Bagsak, meaning one clap, one fall, One voice, we rise tall. We made noise as bridge builders, as Asian and Latinx communities crafted a creation myth of cross coalition against Olympic and seismic oppression, that ending noise out of a void, speaking volumes with Kapwa and La Cultura. So I end with that poem that I wrote, and I wrote actually a year ago, really calling for when the rise of anti-Asian violence started to happen. And I saw the rise after looking at stopapi.org, all the reports coming out like in the thousands, and then again accounting for the underreported. We need Ingaka, right? We need that in order to think about how we can best show up, not just for our fellow Phileams, but other Asians and other racial and ethnic brothers and sisters right now, and gender nonconforming Kaibigan. As an activist, educator, and cross-coalition builder, I constantly think about this conundrum, like drumming in my heart, right? At what speed are we being gaslighted, right? Being told that our oppression and our issues don't exist, burned, slashed, stomped on, and attacked, killed, versus the speed at which people learn about Asian American and Philam oppression, how to empathize with us, and how to take action with and for us, than actually taking action in the name of Kapwa and Isang Bagsak, right? It's a crazy conundrum that we're in, that I have in my brain, because we keep seeing it on the news, right, in our feeds. So our culture is one of social justice, and there's an opportunity for us to lead with our core value, with head and heart aligned, and the idea that power with and not power over, this idea of like using your relational power, because we all have power. Everyone has power here. We all have authoritative, directive power, hard power, and that soft power. And I really want us to shift and see what we can do with that soft power, right? Quote unquote soft. Actually, I think it's a strong power, right? A hard power in and of itself, because relationships are everything. So I've seen it possible, and I've seen it possible through people, through different Filipinx American, Filipino AX American activists, educators, scholars, such as Kalayan Mendoza, Dr. Kevin Nadal, Dr. E.J. Ramos, Derek Quevedo, Dr. Alison Tintiango Cubales, Jose Antonio Vargas, Dr. Liza Talusan, Grace Talusan, who's coming here today, AC Dumlao, Tonalyn Sideco, Gregory Sendana, Jade Wong, and more. There's so many of us out here, and you all doing it at the collegiate level, that it gives me hope. And I want you to grain your Ingat in critical hope, that knowing that we exist. If you feel like you're faltering in your Ingat, in your activism, return to your people, return to us, right? Return to the fact that we are out here, right, doing the work every day. And that you deserve rest. You deserve to take a break from it as well. And last, I want to close out with synthesizing the learning before we get into Q&A. Like, my charge for you all is to think about, where are you in your Ingat, right? Because everyone's at a different place in Ingat right now. Are you able to strengthen and uplift someone within your Philam community? A. Are you at a place where are you ready to build cross coalitions with other people and really be like, yo, we're doing great work with Find, but how can Find be like stretched in the radical imagination to be Find in a coalition with the Black Law Students Association, or the Black Student Union, BSU, at your school, or the other indigenous organization at your school, or another organization, right? How can you stretch Find to get out of its bubble? That's what I want to challenge you to do, but not everyone's there. And I want to like acknowledge that. And I want to end with, let Isang Bagsak be your commitment to kapwa and collective liberation, to people over process, and to praxis over product. Let Isang Bagsak be a clapback to capitalism and white supremacy, because it reminds us that we are not minor in any ways, that Filipinx and Asian Americans are a part of a global majority. And when our similarities fall together, one clap and one sound, our small acts of resilience and resistance are bound to resound and move mountains forward. Thank you. And that concludes kind of the stories of Isang Bagsak and the stories of Ingat for myself. And I'm gonna transition it out to Q&A. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. I especially love the poetry sections. I feel like thank you so much, Dana, especially Isang Bagsak one.
No problem. I'm gonna break this now so we can all see each other.
Um, I love to see everyone's face.
Everyone, please ask questions.
Sure.
Include in the
Give
chat.
a few minutes, 10 to 12
Right.
minutes.
I'm really curious because while we're in our break rooms, I didn't get to hear your answer for some of the questions.
Oh yeah, speak up a little bit.
Oh, speak up a little bit. All right, of course. Sorry, this is my morning voice. When was the last time that you held a boundary? If you're comfortable with sharing, what did that feel like for you? Because
Oh, my Lord, y'all putting the questions back on me. Y'all facilitating me now. Okay. Okay, fine. All right. So, when was the last time I did this? Okay, I can tell you small ones right now. I'm doing a lot of boundary work right now. Ah, oh, I'll tell you a hard one recently. Oh God. Okay. So yes, this last week actually. So I coach teachers. That's part of my job and by day, and I coach teachers who are also working. You know, a lot of them are leaders from different Black and Brown communities. Um, and I remember working with her in regards to leadership and holding my boundary in terms of we have a lot of action items and we have a lot of things to do as we close out the year. And she's in a fellowship where, you know, we have a big presentation at the end of the year. It's called Presentation of Learning, POL. Last minute, she tells me she quits the entire cohort, and it's a year in the making. Like, you don't just quit. In my mind, you don't just quit if you just like you were at the entire thing. I believe you can get to a place where you can do it, but the goal of the cohort was to in this fellowship was to bring a passion project to your school, right? So kids can learn from your identity and learn from your passions, right? Because kids in this pandemic, yo, it's so like kawawa, so sad right now, like the lack of resources, like for real, and lack of opportunity. Kids are tired. If you all feel tired and exhausted and Ingat, imagine like the communities of color in the lowest income of schools, right? Imagine them not finding that community and not feeling that they have Ingat, right? And I told her, I was like, I would love for you to just share your learning. And we got into a boundary tension and generative conflict around, you know, what her boundaries were, which is important, right? Which I tend to sometimes as a coach, I tend to push people like past their boundaries, and I need to monitor that, right? And then for me, I tend to be over accountable for people, and I think people can vibe with that. Like when someone's not pulling the load or doing their work, sometimes you do it for them, and I'm like, why do I do this all the time? So I'm at a different place though. I'm like, I need to be centered in my accountability because it's pulling me in different directions now that I manage so many different projects and workloads. So I had to just share. I was like, yo, like, this is miscommunication. And honestly, I'm not forcing you to do any of the work. I just wish that you would have communicated that you are unable to do it because I'm unable to push you to this level where I'm unable to hold you accountable if you don't tell me what you need. Closed mouths don't get fed, right? This idea of like, if you don't tell me, I'm not a mind reader. I can't tell you how to help yourself, right? And if you're telling me if you're showing up at meetings and you're telling me you're good, you're Gucci, you know, like I'm gonna assume that you Gucci, you know, I'm gonna assume that we're good to go and we're ready for this POL at the end of the year. So I'd really consider what my boundary is with that teacher and how I can actually what's out of my control. I can't really force this person to do that. And at the same rate, I have to also critically analyze, I've pushed this person way past their boundaries myself. Thank you.
I had a question that this is something I was going to ask some of the panelists we have later today, but I feel like is especially relevant to you. Um, for me personally, I know that it's hard to feel like I have a voice when the things that I'm fighting are like systemic and like I can't undo centuries of oppression by myself. So how do you kind of like how do you deal with those feelings of like being helpless against like systems that are bigger than you?
Yeah, I've often felt that, and I still feel that too. Is it Aya? Aya. Thanks for sharing. Um, yeah, I think what returned to me was this book, Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Maree Brown. Highly recommend getting it.
And Adrian talks about it. Shide talks about the idea of this, one of the strategies is small is all, right? This idea that we are all moving mountains together collectively, right? And just keep that in mind, that we are all doing that. And the responsibility of all of the change is not yours, and it cannot be yours. So really focus in on what is your outcome, your impact in the small, short term and the long term, but like within your locus of control. And that's why I talk about boundaries. Like once you define the boundary of your purpose and your intention and whatever you're trying to achieve, celebrate that win, because every win is a win, right? And I have to tell myself that every day, because I'm like, it's not as big as this person. It's not as big as blank. It's not as, it's, it only moved the needle this much, but it did move the needle. And during a pandemic, Aya, that is so important to keep us thriving or surviving, honestly. I'm at a place of, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm thriving now after like many years of just like getting my life together. And I'm getting out of survival. Like I need to be at a place for my family that I want to feel like I'm a boss. I want to feel like that. It's not a problem to feel that way, because I never saw that for myself. I never saw that for myself. And I was like, I want to do that. How can this white person do that? I can't do that. So I always compared myself to that, but I'm like at a point where I'm able to do that. So I still celebrate all my small wins. I take pictures of it. I celebrate it to myself. I say thanks to all the things that helped me lead to that area. And then in relation to, if you're feeling like you're trying to do something big, always bring as many people in as possible. Because I tend to sometimes just lead by myself too. And that's something I'm trying to get better at. It's like, oh my gosh, like this POL project, this presentation of learning, I probably should have brought in a lot more people for this big presentation that's for the entire Miami community earlier on. Now I'm like scrambling. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to connect the marketing person with that person, to like show that we're doing amazing work with kids, right? And it stresses me out a little bit. So fortunately, we have time to bring people in. And that's what I hope you do earlier on. It's like on the front end, you're like, yo, this is a big project. This is a big thing I'm trying to change. I actually need this community, that person, like the plug, you know what I mean? I need everybody. So that's how I want you to imagine your strategy as you move forward with any of that.
And that's sort of what you said is a lead in into Curtis Bass's from D4's question, which is, were you or did you always see yourself on this career trajectory? And if not, what was the catalyst behind pursuing this field of profession?
Yeah, I never saw myself as being an educator. Never. I was like a fifth deadline Teach for America applicant. I was going to move to Japan actually because I love Japanese culture. I love anime. I loved it. I was a Japanese club president at University of Cincinnati. Like I was not in any barcada. There was a barcada at school. I wasn't a part of it, to be honest. And I wish I was. And like my major was Japanese. So I was gonna move to Japan. I got a job at Delta Airlines as an interpreter before Teach for America. And I was like, you know what though? I don't see myself interpreting and being, I love the idea of travel, right? Like no doubt I love that idea, but at the same rate, I'm like, there's so much change that I could do with kids and giving back to the community and with spoken word, right? With organizing. And I was like, I had to really sit down and like weigh my pros and cons of all the things I wanted to do and the change I wanted to make. In Japan, yeah, translating for someone, great. Makes me some money, like a lot of self journey, also making great connections. But there's only so much I can do with that, right? When I'm like the translator. But when I'm someone who's translating for myself, my vision and way of being that people can inherit and take on to change their community, their capacity, damn, like that is powerful. That's more long-term change. And I want long-term change. I'm not thinking about the short term. I'm thinking about the long term. So that's what brought me to it. And I think spoken word helped me too. I'm going to answer whoever was asking about like writers. I think who catalyzed me for as a writer was like Saul Williams earlier on. I don't know if you know Saul Williams, but he's a phenomenal artist. I'll just leave it at that. But he started off in spoken word too, as a Black artist, Black spoken word artist. And I just was like the things he wrote was like psychedelic. And I was like, yo, I want to be like him. I want to embody that and bring that to communities. And another writer now, I would say like Franny Choi. Franny Choi is an artist now, Korean American. There's this poem called Wire Woman. It just like tore me apart. It's an amazing poem, like how she took poetry to the next level, and performance, and how she transformed spaces in person. I can't wait till you all can get back in person, because performance, this is not doing the justice that I want it to do. Like, we're literally doing isang baksa claps, together. We're in community. Like, that's my vibe. So I'm limited. And I hope I in the future I come back at some point. I want to do that with y'all. But yeah, those are two writers I look to right now. Yeah, I know we have 3 minutes left.
So going off of what you just said about your favorite writers, Katie and Maya from D1 have asked, what are some ways you suggest educating ourselves on some of the topics you talked about? And what are your favorite resources / where can we start?
To educate myself?
Yes.
To educate myself. Yo, this is crazy. So I honestly, like, yeah, there's a lot in the academy, y'all. You're learning about the academy, and I went to every form of the academy right now, except for like my doctorate, right? And I'm going through this like area right now as I'm speaking at these corporations or companies and whatever and communities, and I'm like, do I need a doctorate to do any of this stuff? No, all the work is out there right now, and I think like you can get a doctorate, and it's powerful work to do research, and I think that's powerful. But if you do want to make change, I just want to break this idea that like my mom is like making me think like don't you like PhD's next, right? Like I'm like no, it's not. I don't have the time or energy and the resources to do that right now, and I have a family to feed. Like I want to do that. So for people, I really started just following on Instagram. To be honest with you, a lot of my learnings come from Instagram, believe it or not. And weaving that in with the books that I read, because Instagram is oversimplified, as we all know, and it can get really tricky to like, and we start believing truths that are half truths, 1/8 truths. You know what I'm saying? So whatever I post, if you follow me at Tony Rosa Speaks, like question it too. I want to be challenged, and I don't grow myself if you don't challenge me. So I follow Teach and Transform. That's a sis of mine, Liz Kleinrock. I learned a lot about critical race theory and teaching in general from her. She has a massive platform. And then, well, this platform is interesting, and I love it. And she's another sis. Her name is Dr. Kiona. How to Not Travel Like a Basic Bitch is like the platform. And it's like superficial at focus, but she's playing the algorithm where she posts pictures of herself, and then it attracts more people to her page because the algorithm is that way, right? It actually picks up pictures, but behind the slides are like all these activist learnings, and I'm like, yo, I did not know about that. What? Like racial triangulation? Like, I need to go into that and understand what that means. How can I break that down more easily for my community? And then of course, like not just following like Asian Americans, but like other organizations who are leading, where you feel like you have a bias and you feel like you're like, oh, this is my identity wheel, right? I am cis hetero male, cisgender Filipino AX, Filipinx American, Latinx. I identify as Latinx. People don't normally understand that, because I do embrace the decolonial side or the colonization side. I'm trying to unpack that and what that means. I do identify as brown Asian, and I'm really trying to figure out, okay, so I'm gonna follow people who like speak to these identities, and then outside of that, I need to, for my critical kapwa, my ingat with other people, I'm going to make sure I bridge and learn from other people. And that's where I start following like the Trans Abolitionist Network, right? Or like the Abolitionist Law Center, right? Because I don't know enough about abolitionism to call myself an abolitionist. I'm an aspiring abolitionist, right? So really putting your feet to that, because the formula also like just gives you stuff that you like too, that you constantly look at, subtle Asian traits, subtle Filipino traits. And I love that because it keeps me joyful and hopeful. But at the end of the day, there's too many people on that for too long, and we need people to be taking like the next step and like following people who are doing dope work and sharing that, amplifying that. So that's how I've been doing it, y'all. That's, I know I'm 1 minute over, but if you if you didn't get your answer in the chat, you can always email me. I'm at a point where I still have the ability to still have I try to make way, specifically my philams, to have conversation. So feel free to email me, follow me. You can DM me on Instagram as well. I'm very active there. And we can continue the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us, Tony. I feel like honestly the worst part about doing any type of panel like this is that there's just always so much unfinished business at the end. You just never get to talk about everything you want to talk about. So, do you have anything to say or should I hand?
Thank you so much, Tony.
I was wondering, can I take a photo for those who are willing to take a screenshot photo? I love doing that. If anyone's willing to do it, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I see people coming through. I appreciate that. For those who want, because I didn't have a dark barcada, and it just makes me feel like I have one, which is really nice. And I hope to see you all lead like beyond this barcada. Okay, I'm gonna take a picture on 3, 2, 1, and all right, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Ingat. Have a great conference. Bye.
Thank you so much, Tony. There's so many things that you said that really I'm sure like resonated with everyone here. Like just being in control of like your locus and like your soft power, like your intersections with your family, your own communities, or like communities around you. I'm really happy that we were able to get you to come. And I feel like at this point, it's been like 2 years since I first met you, I'm pretty sure, which is crazy. And I'm glad that we, yeah. I'm finally glad it worked out. But yeah, we're super happy that you could come speak here. And I think like everyone here, it's like really happy. And like a lot of people already messaging me like, this guy's awesome. So we really appreciate you being here. Can we get like a quick round of applause, a virtual round of applause for this guy? Wow. Yes, so incredible.
Love y'all.
Yeah. Anything else for Tony? Alrighty. Thank you so much, man. Ingat, man. Take care. So next on the agenda, I'm just kind of walk y'all through the day. Basically, we have 3 panels coming up. That's community building, mental health, and social justice. The next one will be the mental health panel. That's gonna start at 11:25. So we have some time. You guys can like decompress, just get off Zoom for a little bit so you can relax. I would recommend using that file that Marielle just dropped in the chat, which has the schedule with the links on it open, so we can just like jump through each Zoom throughout the day, and that should be pretty easy for y'all. We also have like 5-minute breaks in between just to like get off camera for a little bit and like go to the bathroom, do what you want. And I think that is it. We also are doing like a break and a lunch. The lunch is going to be more casual, and the break is going to be like, there's going to be a casual room, and there's also going to be a like more kind of debriefing, reflecting, like if people want to do that, because some of these topics are going to be pretty heavy. So we want to offer both of those things. And I think that is it. If you have any questions, feel free to email the conference email, and we should be good. I will see you all at 11:25 Eastern Standard Time. Bye.